Shabbat Shalom. Generally speaking, most years that there is an election on a Tuesday, by the time Shabbat rolls around, you know, with basically no room for the possibility of a debate, who won. Most years. But we live in 2020, so, all bets are off. Now, unlike the election, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I was giving the sermon today, because we plan these things out very far in advance. But I was stuck in a rather difficult position, because, you gotta write this thing out before Shabbat. And all week I kind of kept putting off writing this, hoping that at some point it would be decided what was going to happen, electorally speaking. Because then if that happened, then finally, I could write. I would know what basis from which to write a sermon. Would there be a big change? Would there not be a big change? That seemed really important to know before I did this. But Wednesday morning rolled around, and Wednesday night, and then Thursday morning, and there just kept being nothing definitive happening. And eventually, you just got to write the dang thing. Shabbat is going to come. It's going to start, more importantly. And then even if something decisive does happen, you literally can't write about it anymore. So I had to write something. But how? I thought to myself, how could I deliver a sermon, a message to the congregation full of relevance for this extremely unique time that we find ourselves in, with so much uncertainty still hanging in the air? But then I remembered. Then I realized that no matter how this thing shakes out, the sermon that you give after this election is the same. I want you to think right now. Close your eyes if you have to. Picture in your mind the faces of your family and your friends and your neighbors and your coworkers. I'm doing the same thing. Some of them, they voted like us, and some of them did not. And all of them will still be our family and our friends and our neighbors and our coworkers after this is resolved. No election changes that fact. Our community is still our community. This is where we live. These are our people. For better or worse, these are our people. And these relationships that we have with them, with each other, they're sacred. Literally, they are holy. Our Torah and our prophets and our most ancient rabbis, they kind of harp on this. They kind of literally can't stop talking about the sanctity of relationships. And they say it's because relationships, friendships, are a matter of life or death. There's a very famous man in the Talmud. We love to tell stories about him. His name is Honi, the circle maker. Rabbis love the story about the carob tree and the guy walking along. They love to tell that story on high holidays. I did that, for example. But the story of Honi, the circle maker, actually goes on after that. He falls asleep at some point during his adventures, falls asleep for 70 years. It's a long time to sleep. And when he wakes up, everybody he knows is dead. And he wanders through the village, and it's really actually sad reading the story in the Talmud about him. He wanders through the village, and he recognizes the descendants of people he knew, but it's not them because they're gone, and those people don't recognize him. And he goes to the study hall that he used to hang out with his friends, and no one there recognizes him because they're not his friends. They don't know who he is. And he gets upset. And the Talmud tells us that he gets so upset that all those people, all those relationships are gone. He gets so upset that he dies. It's a rather dark end to the story of Honi. And our ancient rabbis tell us this story about him to explain what is apparently a very common folk saying back then, chavruta o metuta, meaning friendship or death. Which is to say, and they explain, that a person who does not be living in relationship with other people, if you're not in relationship with other people, you're in a kind of living death. We don't just need other people, our rabbis say. We need other people to live a life worth living. I'm not trying to be morbid here. I just think it's really important to note now, more than ever, that our tradition implores us to remember that our relationships with our family, with our friends, with the people that we are surrounded by, with the people we have built our lives with and around, those relationships are holy. And like every holy thing, they require care and time, patience, respect, and love. So if you haven't, now might be a good time to check in with your people, those who voted like you and those who did not vote like you. Not to rehash the news, everybody's got a phone, so you don't need to do that. But to say hi. How are you doing? How are you feeling? What do you need? And just sit together, socially distant, virtually, whatever, sit together. And just be together. Because then you're saying, I care about you and our relationship. Because ultimately, our job as Texans, as Americans, as Jews, is to be God's partner in this continual process of creation. Hasidic Jewish mystical thought holds that the world was created broken, and the whole reason we exist is to help put it back together. I don't need to tell you, I don't need to enumerate all the ways in which the world is broken right now. You know it. You have eyes, you have ears, you know it. There's a lot of brokenness right now. There's a lot of pain, and there's a lot of need. There's a lot of fear, and there's too much anger as well. And we are at our best, our most divine, as Jews and as Americans, when we focus on healing and on justice and on joy for ourselves and for and with those with whom we live in holy relationship. May God bless us all, and may God continue to bless the United States of America. Shabbat Shalom.